No more than 100 days passed since Yanukovych inauguration when Western Ukraine started to think again whether to separate or not from the Eastern one. That's it, it's time to separate. There should be two Ukraines. Let Donbass where they occur, breathe pollution emissions from metallurgical plants and feed oligarchs. I'm 100% behind the idea. Western Ukraine will happily detach from Eastern tweets, its biomass of deadbeats, drunkards, junkies. Let Russia toil with them, and we will calmly enter Europe in several years. These are only 2,000 squads taken from the internet, but it's not limited to the internet. Not only anonymous bloggers argue about the Ukraine separation. For example, Professor Yevhen Sobolenko considers that it's necessary to divide Ukraine into Western and Eastern to save it. It's time to forget false shame and the so-called patriotism and admit that Ukraine as an independent state is doomed to die and has no further prospects. The East is overwhelming ballast that sinks the country. The idea of the national unity doesn't work. If we don't save the regions where the nation, not the populace that doesn't remember its language and history lives, we'll lose everything. Getting rid of this ballast, Western Ukraine will get the opportunities for stating a really European country and entering NATO and European Union. One of Tymoshenko's co-partners, Yuri Lusenko, declared, "Ordinary people from Western Ukraine are actively discussing the necessity of the country's division. We've never witnessed such tension. Everybody says, make peace or part." There Yuri Lusenko is dissembling. The tension in which to get separated already happened among Western Ukrainians each time the events failed to go by their scenario. In 1990s, the possibility of parting 6 Western regions was seriously taken into consideration when the so-called pro-Russian Leonid Kuchma took over the government. We were in Kiev in 1994 when Kuchma became a Ukrainian president. Kravchuk, the former president, told us that if Kuchma was going to combine Ukraine and Russia, they had already prepared manifests from 6 Western regions of forming an independent Ukrainian state. In 2004, everyone could ascertain again that Galician inhabitants were ready to go to extremes in case of losing control over the political situation. Town and regional rulers immediately declared their unwillingness to obey Viktor Yanukovych after his victory in the presidential election, which was actually an extremely grievous crime. Back in 2004, they were the ones who wanted to stop paying into the country's budget. It was them who weren't even federalists but separatists because they could easily provoke country's breakdown. It was back that then even ordinary folk started talking about the necessity of splitting the country. I'm for the European choice, I'm for NATO, and the Eastern Ukraine doesn't want this. This is why I want Ukraine to split, especially after the arrival of these comrades. Now, these comrades from Eastern Ukraine are not only in Maidan Square, but also in all the main government offices. The politicians of Western Ukraine are once again facing the choice between the power struggle and division of territories. Their fighting resources have considerably diminished in the last few years. The division of territories, however, is a matter of habit. Every independent struggler of Ukraine did this in their time, including Mazeppa, Skoropadsky, and Petliura. It is of course incorrect to think that Ukraine will split in the very near future. Elites are not interested, you know. The majority of radicals support the idea, but the elites wouldn't want to. They still think it's possible to reach a compromise. However, there are different opinions. We know from history that all attempts to reconcile Galician and Donbass failed. At the beginning of 1919, the union of Western and Eastern Ukraine was announced. On practice, they never united. They still had 2 governments, 2 armies, the Dievo army in the east and the Galicia army of the Western Ukraine, and they still had a border along the Zbruch River, complete with the border control. They never united. Today, as compared with previous years, for Eastern Ukraine, letting Western Ukraine go is even easier than refusing Europe, and they don't worry about choosing their words carefully. As if it weren't enough that Galicians wash toilets in Europe, don't pay a dime of tax here, and offset their deficit at our expense. They're constantly telling us how to live our lives. Says who? Separatists. In the 16th century, Galicians bartered the faith of their fathers away for food allowance. In 1914, together with the Austrians, they fought against the rest of Ukraine. Then they kissed Germans and Poles' asses. In 1941, they helped Germans to shoot Ukrainians down. And then, when Ukraine was being rejuvenated, roped in the woods. And now they rape everyone with their Nazi ideology. Go to hell! Dozens of thousands of people seem to be talking about that, and as Karl Marx put it, theory also becomes a material force as soon as it has gripped the masses. Nationalists, including those who have real power in regional councils in the west of Ukraine, like Oleg Tiniborg, openly declare, the hour will arrive when there will be storms and we will seize buildings. His more radical associates train young fighters. Here is a teenage military camp we filmed the other day. In the woods and mountains, boys of 15 take a full self-defense course with firearms using beer cans as a target. In the evening, political propaganda hour. Because of all troubles with the Jews and the Russians, the only possible way to deal with them is the policy of force. While teenagers are training to be strong and healthy, their juniors in Lvov are running around doing quests death to enemies, glory to heroes, in memory of OU and UPay. Their counselors, very self-assured, grant interviews. Very soon people on their own motion will go against the government, will take up pitchforks and scythes, and people will raise their revolt. We are waiting for the authorities to make so many mistakes that people rise in rebellion, and then we'll help to organize them. The opposition has established National Salvation Committee of Ukraine, but more and more people begin to wonder whether it's necessary to set up Committee of National Salvation from such opposition.